You got another one?
Yeah. How many bones are in your lower leg, Tony?
Oh, that's another one. Yeah.
One.
How many?
The leg bones.
7.
There's
How many
two.
bones?
How many bones are in your lower leg?
How many bones?
Oh, there's two, right?
Yeah. See, I remember one. When I was taking, and here's the reason, is I was taking kickboxing. And the guy that actually coached your stepdad, too. Had a long conversation with a former Muay Thai kickboxing champ. He's a friend of mine, and my old teacher, too, one of them. And I asked him. I literally called him up one day when I first started doing the show. Me and my old co-host, Armando, were talking about doing the Mandela. We've been talking about it for a long time. We just didn't know how to broach it. So I called this guy up in front of Mondo, and I said, check this out. I was like, check this out. And I asked him, I said, how many bones are in the lower leg? And he says, 1. And I said, dude, you are a Muay Thai kickboxer, teacher, coach, champion, whatever.
Kicked thousands of legs.
You've kicked so many people. And he goes, and when I told him that, he goes, nah. He was driving at the time. He goes, when I get somewhere, I'm gonna look it up. Now, I'm sure now, like if you ask Cobra or Josh Scales, your coach, your coach Anthony, the kickboxer. I know Scipio's your boxing coach, but you know you've trained with Josh. I bet if you go and you asked him tomorrow at Black Sheep Boxing, another promo there, if you go to Black Sheep Boxing and you asked him, he'll probably tell you too, because now it's been long enough to where we know this. This was back in 2019, and I called this guy up and I said, hey, let me ask you a question. And he told me, he said, it was 1. I said, no, go look it up. He did. He called me back. He goes, you're kidding me. This is weird. You're freaking me out. You're blowing my mind. I remember when I was training, because that would be, throwing kicks a certain way with 2 bones instead of 1 changes the way you would do it. I would start aiming for that bone as a lower leg, which they do now. But I wasn't taught to do that. I was taught to throw up near the thigh. This bone right here was so hard. That shin is so, and I have.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Now that you mentioned, I do remember, like, you were trying to avoid the shin bone. You really wanted to go for the thigh. And
yeah.
That was why. But now, if you think about it, now that if it's 2 smaller bones, that would be a lot easier to break.
Yeah, because you're not just dealing with one big, thick thigh. Yeah. I mean, a shin bone, which was dang near impossible to break in my timeline that I remember. And I'm saying my timeline because my physician friend, I talked to him and I said, what else do you remember about the human anatomy? And he said, well, there were 2 bones. There were not 2 bones. There is now. The rib cage is different. Nelly, you know that.
The sternum?
The sternum is different. The rib cage is different. The placement of the heart is different.
They said something about an extra sac around the heart that a lot of people don't remember.
Yeah, and I remember in my timeline, another weird thing is that I was a millionaire and I was king of the world and everyone adored me, and now I'm not.
I remember that too. But I remember an uprising.
Stephen looks at me with his mouth open like, what? This fool that took a left turn. No. We're back on track. Look, no. Well, I'm joking, man. I was king of the world, though, but not everybody liked me. Hey, leaders got to make tough decisions, man. I had to wipe out half the population like Thanos.
But don't worry. Only the people that didn't like him were wiped out. So
they're all wiped out.
Thankfully, he got the margins down to 70% liked him, 30% were close to death.
That's right. I just followed the beloved examples of Joseph Stalin, Pol Pot, and Mao Zedong. Just kidding, folks. I would never follow those guys. I'd be a Thanos guy all the way. I'm not good with half measures. It's all or nothing.
Rip the roots out by the weed, or rip the
completely
weeds out by the
destroy the
root.
world and recreate it in Orion's spur. That's what we did. No, but and I'm joking. And people say, "Why do you always say you're joking?" Because I have to say that because there's some people that take it literal. Yeah, I've been threatened. Nellie knows this. I have been threatened, right, honey?
Oh yeah.
By people who tell me that if I don't say certain things a certain way, they're going to do something to me. Especially this one lunatic. Several months ago, I haven't heard from him in a while, but he said as long as I make good shows, he won't hurt me. And I'm like, thank goodness I'm making good shows.
He said he would shoot you.
Yeah, he said he was going to come after me. Yeah. Like go up to somebody like John Lennon or something, hey, you like good music, boom. I'm not comparing myself to the Beatles, but I'm saying like this guy acts like if I don't.
Yeah, the Beatles can never, hold a candle to us. So.
Well, I had somebody also tell me over and over again in a very militant way that I was supposed to make a Mandela effect because his timeline was affected. And if I didn't do it, and I'm like, what is this? One of those Terminator things? Is this important to the future of the world that if we don't make the episode, everything changes?
We don't
And
get
he
the
was all like,
information
no,
out.
but we could cease to exist. I'm like, okay, well, there you go. That does,
That's kind of the same, isn't it?
yeah. I think he was kidding, but then again, I'm kind of scared to ask him because I don't know.
You don't know what he knows.
I don't know. People are strange, man. They're weird. Oh, and another one, Nellie just lifted up her hand. Yes, the thumb. Talk about that one, Nellie.
That it's lower and longer. The thumb seems to be lowered and a little bit longer than it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
You say the thumb used to be shorter?
Yeah, the thumb is longer now, and it's lower on the hand.
Right. Oh, so it used to be up a little bit higher on the hand?
Mm-hmm. Now, I got something for that. And when we were kids, we would do these turkeys that we would make with our hand. We would trace it with our hand, and we would
still do that.
Yeah, you still do that. Now,
Back in high school, we still do that.
back in high school. Okay. So anyways, there was a guy who told me that his mother had pulled out his pictures when he was a kid and she found like one he had made of him and his sister of the turkey. And he goes, dude, his hand didn't fit. Now, this is an example we call residuals. His hand didn't fit, with like where the thumb was at, whatever.
The shape
of it, yeah. And he said that he had looked at it like just a couple years later, and he was noticing that the thumb was like, this is a young guy about y'all's age, but he was noticing that his thumb didn't, and it was only 2 years, but it was
the placement was way
off place. And he said that, he went and he asked a couple of his friends, and they did the same thing. They went and they looked, and they noticed it too. And it would be, okay, you're 2 years older, yeah, but it's not going to go that far down.
Yeah, you're not Shaq all of a sudden.
Yeah. All of a sudden you're Shaquille O'Neal. No. So you have all these weird Mandela effects that we can't even. Now that leads us into the next one I'm going to talk about. I'm going to tell a story because we got to get to the story that happened to us, which kind of concerns me.
Well, you found the one with the wrist pulse location.
The wrist is tell that one real quick, Nellie.
I was checking Wolf's pulse, and he's like, "You're doing it wrong. You're not putting it right." And I was like, "No, that's where your pulse is." And he grabbed his wrist, and he goes, "No, it's supposed to be right here." And he was looking for it, and he couldn't find it. And so I moved his finger, and I put it over the spot where the pulse is. And he said that he clearly remembers it being in that one spot because you used to check your pulse when you were in football.
Where do you used to remember it?
In the middle.
Yeah, right here, right?
Yeah, it's not in the middle anymore. It's on
That's
the
where
side.
I feel my pulse.
It's on the side.
It's right here on the top. Yeah, that's where everybody checks it now.
I still check in the middle.
You can, but you don't get as good of a reading. But that's not the way I remember it. I remember there was no pulse up here. It was all in the middle.
Put two fingers.
Two fingers on the middle. Yeah, but that's not the way they
That's
do
what
it.
we used to do in football.
Yeah, well, that's not how it is. Because your coaches were probably from my generation. They remember it that way, and they taught you that way.
I remember the one that you told me you and your guys were sitting at that restaurant. It was Queen Elizabeth. She had passed away, and you guys were watching it when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big one.
Queen Elizabeth outlived.
And we thought, well, Prince Charles is now going to become King Charles because the mother had died. Not her mother, but her.
Yeah.
And they showed pictures of her. And we laughed about it. It was at La Posada restaurant because we were like, and Dee was like, finally, she's gone, the old reptile.
Yeah, she outlived Betty White.
Yeah. And so this woman goes, how dare you? And I couldn't believe how she was defending her. And it was a Mexican restaurant, and it was actually one of the waitresses, I think, daughters or something. So I was like trying not to be argumentative with her because, I wanted to get kicked out. We always hung out there. And and Scorpion said something like, what do you care? You're like me, we're Mexican. What do we care about the Queen of England? And she was like, because she's a royal family. And there was a big argument that ensued.
Who cares?
That's what I'm saying.
Not our
but,
royal
and
family.
Scorpion said, what do you care? We're all, and she was like, because it's the royal family. He's like, you're not English. What do you care? So there was like this big argument, that took place in the restaurant. And I specifically remember that. And Nellie has actually talked to Dee about it. Scorpion about it. We were all there.
Well, Nelson Mandela too. Like I heard.
Well, the whole Mandela effect is based on Nelson Mandela.
Yeah. Do you know?
It's the third time I remember him dying. It was in 2016.
He died. Apparently, he died in prison, and then also he got out of prison and then died again later on.
Yeah.
But people remember him dying in prison.
People remember him dying 3 times now.
Yeah.
3 times.
Yeah, I believe it was 94 or 96. One of them
97, 2014.
And then 2014, or no, 2000. No, I remember 9 or 10.
Oh.
And then 2016. Anyway, it's very confusing when you get into the whole. But let me get to this story. This one happened in Oregon. And I'm going to tell you this one, and y'all can give me your opinions on this and what you think happened here.
Okay.
This gentleman reached out to me because his sister, actually, and he's an older guy. He's an older gentleman. He's in his 60s. I had a conversation with him. It was quite a frank conversation. I mean, it was so mind blowing to him. But he got up every day, like he did, to take the road that he took to work. It was about 6 miles from where he lived, and he was driving, and he looked down for a second, and he ran off the road and almost hit a tree. Luckily, he righted his truck, and he kind of scraped the side of it. And he said this happened back in 2017. And he said, I wasn't injured or anything other than, I was freaked out. And he goes, I don't remember a curve there. He was like, oh my gosh. He calls his wife. Yeah, it happened to me, but I didn't wreck, thank goodness. But he called his wife and he was like, honey, I just had a wreck. And she's like, why? He goes, I just hit a curve that I don't remember. And she's like, what curve? They have a very gentle curve that they did. So he took his wife and his son, who was already in his 20s, and he's about y'all's age, Tony and Stefan. And he said that they went, and he goes, right here, and then there's a sharp curve. None of them remember this, but he had a daughter. She said, yeah, I do remember there being a sharp curve there. How can y'all not remember it? So there was this big argument that took place in their household. Now, I talked to him, not the wife, but he said his wife, when I was talking to him, the wife was in the background, kind of reaffirming what, was being, and I heard her saying there was never a curve there. She was confirming it, and she's like, you can talk to our son. But the younger daughter remembers there being a curve, but the 3 individuals in the family don't. Like the 18-year-old daughter doesn't remember it. The 23-year-old son remembers it, or 24, whatever he is.
At that moment, you have to wonder, did they used to have a daughter, or were they?
Yeah, that is exactly what I thought. And I said, sir, get out of that house. Your daughter is a pod person. Get out of the house. Your life is in danger. And so they went in there and they tied her up and called the police, and then they all went to jail. That's not what happened, folks. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Yeah, because if it was a correct world, it would happen. But unfortunately, we're living in this one.
We can't tie people up that don't remember like we do.
Yeah.
There's the rememberists and the non-rememberists. Which one
we
are
can't
you?
tie people up because they're different. Crazy.
So what do you think of that story? What's going on with that?
I believe that it changed. We were driving down that road, and you were like, I don't remember this curve,
Mm-hmm.
and that happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
When you say it changed, do you mean like a time slip? Like
Imagine,
there was a curve.
imagine you're going through a tunnel, right?
yes.
To work every morning. You drive through that tunnel. And then all of a sudden, one day, there's no tunnel. That's what it's basically like. And then you have to go around. And then everyone tells you that's the only way is to go around. When you remember specifically driving through this tunnel. That's pretty much what it's like.
That's right.
That would spook me so bad. I would probably be like, okay, I'm done.
But with this guy, it would be to the point to where he would crash into the wall because he's so used to driving into the tunnel.
He would have, yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened here.
6 miles from his house where he worked, and he said that, for life, I think he said 19 years, something like that.
He would definitely know.
I mean, and all of a sudden there's a curve there. It's a sharp curve. I'm very observant, and I noticed that on 45. If you look at a map, folks, when you're going from North Austin into Round Rock, and you go on Loop 1 to 45, just look at a map. There's a sharp curve that it goes. I don't remember that curve until like maybe 7-8 years ago. I was driving along, and I was like, whoa, and it curves. I don't remember that curve. I remember it being a gentle curve, just kind of slowly, where you kind of just you don't even feel it. You know what I mean? Now it's pretty sharp, and if you drive too fast, you can wreck. And so there's some weird stuff out there. I mean, I don't know. There's a tunnel, like you were talking about a tunnel. There's one in Portland, Oregon. I was shown in the Mandela Effect group. I know, honey, you saw that one. There was a guy that said, I don't remember no tunnel being there. Where did this come from? And multiple people jumped on there and said, what is that? I don't remember that. And one woman said she lived in Portland her whole life. Don't remember that tunnel. There's a whole bunch of
it's not
weird.
like his tunnels that are showing up like 1 or 2.
No, it's
years.
a lot.
No, I mean like 1 or 2 years. It's like they've always been there. Like people are like, oh, no, that's the crazy tunnel or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's always been there. We've always gone through that. And they're like, what are you talking about? That's never been here.
Mm-hmm. Look at the map, for example. The map of Texas. This is another one that me and Armando studied. I asked Armando one time, we were eating dinner, and God rest his soul, he was my former co-host. But anyway, me and Armando, there were some things we agreed on, some things we didn't. The Mandela effect was one thing we did agree on. And we sat there, and I said, "Take a look at the map of Texas." And we were eating, and there was like a restaurant we were eating at that had like
placemat.
The placemat, and it had like the map of Texas on it with the menu, whatever. And he goes, "It looks different." He goes, "Well, that's just a mistake." He said that's how they drew it on here. And I said, "No, it's not." I was like, "Look it up on Google." He Googled it. And he goes, "What the heck?" And I said, "Armando, take a close look at that map and tell me if that looks right. Tell me what looks wrong on there." Because he goes, "I can tell you more about what looks wrong and what looks right." Yeah. So if you take a look at the map of Texas, this part right here, where I'm showing you, Stefan. Okay, that the panhandle right here to the left on the map of Texas. If you look at it, the panhandle is smaller than we remember it. The top over there, Dallas wasn't as close to Oklahoma as it is now. I remember it being further down. I also remember the Oklahoma border, Texas border being further down, further south, and there being not this sharp upswing right here at the where the panhandle meets that angle right there. I don't know what that's called. What city this is right here? Let me see. What is it right there? Kermit. Okay, so if you look at Kermit, it's right there at the bottom. Then it goes straight up. It's the New Mexico border. So if you go from Kermit all the way up to the top, where it hits the New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma all come to like a meeting spot right there. Like you can go from Oklahoma to Texas, New Mexico. Now that is way taller and higher up than I remember it. Then Nelly said, "You remember it?" Then Armando remembered it. None of us remember. And so I asked many of my friends, people that work for us. You know, I asked my friend Jim. I asked is one of my brothers from back in the day. I asked Squid. I asked Loki. I asked all these people. Do you remember this? Pretty much unanimously, they're all saying, "Hey, this is not the way we remember the map of Texas." It is so weird. I mean, so
yeah. When I was a kid, I used to draw Texas because I like the state. And it was never up that high. And that panhandle came out. Because I remember I tried to perfect it all the time. I could never draw it correctly, but I remember that being one of the parts that I would have a problem drawing.
Yeah, it is a very weird thing, you know, a very strange thing. And when you look at certain states, like I have a friend from Louisiana.
Mind you, I was 7 years old.
Well, I mean, you know, we were talking about this recently, though. Me, you, and Armando.
Yes.
What I'm talking about, I have a friend who's from Louisiana, and he swears that it looks different, that the placements of the cities are different, things are different, that he remembers them. A friend of mine from California. Now, when we were out in California, I remember Los Angeles being further in, closer to the ocean, or further. Like it looks like it's further away from the ocean than it used to be. Does that make sense? Like if you look at the map, look up California, and I go to LA, and I'm sitting here telling you folks, I remember this being like LA being right there on the ocean, which it kind of is, but not. There's suburbs of it that are on the ocean. I remember LA itself being placed there. There's a lot of weird things about the map of California that just don't make sense to me. Seattle up in Washington, that's another one that's really weird to me. I remember they're not just being this little dip that where the harbor comes in, you know, whatever. I remember it being, and then there's this big old piece of land that goes further out past Seattle. I remember Seattle being right on the ocean, which it kind of is, but I mean like it being right on the ocean. And I don't remember this big piece of land right there to the left of it. When we were up there in 2018, remember, honey, I kept saying, what the heck is going on with Seattle? I don't remember this. Okay, now you pulled up Seattle, Stefan, on the ball here. The placement of Seattle, when you look at where it's at now, I don't remember it being that way. I mean, it is just so weird to me. Look up the map of Washington. And you at home listening can tell me what you think of this if you're following what we're saying. Do you remember it this way? The biggest one probably for me is South America. South America is way, way over to the right, almost to Africa. It's now closer to Africa than we are, closer to Europe. I mean, it's weird. It's like Africa and South America. One thing I will say is about this is that I remember looking at years ago, looking at a map of the world, and this map of Earth was showing Earth in multiple stages, like from millions of years ago to billions of years ago. And I remember the younger the younger Earth being a certain way, and then the older Earth, that was closer to our time. And it showed where South America was as opposed to Africa. South America was right below North America on that map. But at one time, which was only I think they said 30 million years before, it had been moved. It was moved over 60 million years before. It was moved over even further. And I remember thinking, this map that we're in right now looks like a younger Earth. We're younger. Like the continents aren't as far apart as I remember them. Plus, I remember there being the Earth only had 1 billion years left or something like that, and now it's got 2.4 billion, something like that. There's so many things I've read, and I'm trying to remember them. I'm trying to recall them while I'm speaking here. But South America is moved over, really far on the map, where I remember it just below North America.
If we're looking at it at a financial standpoint, then you would want to reverse the aging of the Earth if you want more resources.
Exactly. You would jump timelines to try to make that happen. Yeah. Yes, and that's where CERN comes in. And I believe that they've done that. I honestly do. And I think that what they've done too is made the continents and everything closer together. So shipping and everything else is, and Africa is closer to Europe
because that was one of the main
South America's closer
strong
to
points
Africa.
of the U.S. and South America is we're separate from that big old mass over there, and it would take them a lot. It would be hard for them to be able to attack us because it would first mean them having to bring their entire fleet across the ocean, then having to land in foreign territory, which was us.
Well, pull up the map of the Panama Canal. That's another one. If you look at the
Hawaii
Panama
was
Canal,
one of the only ways to actually one of the only spots where you could stop before you make it to the U.S. And now it's just you could just go from Africa. Why would you even think about going it the other way?
Yeah, and now the Panama Canal is another one. The placement of the Panama Canal. If you look at it, it almost goes north to south, whereas a lot of people remember it being east to west.
Yeah, because it was a cut through.
Yeah, it was a cut through from east to west. But the way that the map looks now, and then Cuba is way larger than I remember it being. Where's the canal at? Let's see. So anyway, those are a few of the examples. If you go and you start looking at these different. So when you look at the map, okay, and then Windsor, I think it's Detroit to Windsor. My brother and my old barber Ryan Dinsmore, the hairstylist, they were both lived in Detroit, in that area. They remember going, from one side from Detroit into Canada. If you pull a map up of Detroit and Windsor, and they remember it being is the same thing. You go from one side to the other, which was east-west, and now you go to, let's see, Detroit, Windsor. And you can clearly see where it goes now. It goes from Detroit down into Windsor instead of the other way around.
I was supposed to flip?
Yeah. They remember it being completely opposite. Yeah.
That's just
so strange, dude. There's so many weird things, I'm telling you. And then where a lot of people from Wisconsin, Michigan have reported remembering when they were young, that piece, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, was part of Wisconsin. And now it's part of Michigan. And there are so many people who've reached out to me and said, hey, this isn't the way I remember it. And I'm just giving you food for thought, folks. I'm not telling you that we're 100% right, because if timelines are shifting and changing, we're not going to be able to know, because the timelines are shifting and changing.
Honestly.
So you're not going to know 100% hey, this is what's happening, because it's happening and you have no way to prove it.
At this point, history books are just going to be a blank piece of paper and a pencil, and you just have to write what you remember.
Oh,
It is so weird. Now, the Bible. We look at the Bible. Now, we know the Bible has changed in different things or different ways. But I've talked to people of every faith, and I don't want to get into that because I'll make a lot of people mad. But they remember things differently. The lion will lay down with the lamb. You can look up that verse. I don't know if anybody wants to do that at home. You can look it up. Now it is the wolf lays down with the lamb, which is really weird. I mean, that has changed.
You know what? Why I would think it's the first one is because Dave Chappelle has a quote. It's sometimes you have to roar like a lion to be the lamb you really are, and that quote makes a lot more sense if that was the original where he got it from.
Yeah, if he got it from the King James version of the Bible.
Yeah.
But that to me is a Mandela effect. It's weird. There's a lot of weird stuff. I just can't even begin to tell you like how much there is. This is the last story I'm going to tell you, and this one I call Truck of a Different Color. This happened to somebody who was selling. They worked in an insurance firm. This happened in Oklahoma, and he asked his secretary to take pictures, if she wouldn't mind, take pictures of his truck to help him sell it. And he told her, "Hey, if you field the calls to help sell it, I'll give you a percentage of it." And she's like, "Okay." So there was another employee that told me about this, and he heard about my show through his daughter. And thank goodness somebody had told him, because our show's great. So anyway, she told him, and so he reached out to me and he said, my boss and his secretary were trying to sell his truck. Well, he specifically remembered the truck being a light green color because he had it custom painted. So literally one day he was looking at the advertisement that she had put up on Craigslist, and he said, "Oh, that looks cool. That's the truck, huh?" And then when he zoomed in, he realized that the truck was a bluish green.
What?
Yeah, more bluish than green. Whereas before it was light green, like just light green. He had gotten it painted, and he specifically remembers everybody going like, "Why did Bobby paint the truck this ugly color?" It looked like split pea soup or something. And it was supposed to be an army light, like an army type green, but they didn't do the job right. But then when he pointed it out, then the secretary she woke up, kind of like when I was talking to the guy that we met in Roswell at the planetarium. She's like, "This is weird," like she goes, "Yeah, you know what? I remember it being light green." And she's like, and he goes, "It's light blue." So when they asked the guy who ran that was the boss at the insurance company, and he came up and he said, "No, it was always light blue. I had it painted and it was greenish blue." And she's like, "But I thought you wanted an army color." He goes, "No, I decided not to because the guy said it would be too hard to do, you know what?" And they're like, "No, you did that." And he's like, "I think I would remember. It's my truck." So there was this huge argument. So he literally, in front of the two people at their behest, called his wife. She gets on the phone and she told him, she's like, "Yes, go outside and look at what color is my truck." She goes, "It's light green." And he's like, "It's bluish green." She goes out there, she looks, she comes back and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm having a nervous breakdown." His wife started to have a panic attack. He had to leave work to go home to deal with her because she freaked out. And this guy's going like, "What is this? All these people are going crazy. I know what color my truck was." But it was then it became an argument that got so heated the next day when we went in with another employee that they almost got into a fist fight because he called him a crazy coot. Because, guy's like, "You know what? You're crazy. You're a crazy old coot." And he's like, "What do you mean crazy old coot?" Like he took offense to it. And then it was like an argument. They were in each other's face. And then the guy's like, "You know what? I quit." And then they called him, and then everybody sat down literally in this little conference room. This guy told me this story. He said, "Dude, we talked about it." And he goes, "Nobody remembers it that way but him." He goes, "But wait a minute. There was one other person that was on vacation. When that guy came back from New York, he was on vacation in New York. He came back. He said this, they said, don't say anything. When he walked through the door, the first thing they did was go, 'Hey, go look at Bobby's truck.'" He goes out there and goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You don't notice anything different about it?" And he goes, "No." He's like, "What color was it before?" He goes, "Well, before he got it painted, it was a brown." He goes, "I'm not talking about the color, but like, what color was it that you remember?" He goes, "Light blue, like bluish green." So that employee confirmed it. He was like, and so then they started accusing the boss of maybe you called him, you told him, whatever. And he goes, no. And then there was a big argument that started with this guy. And it was like, dude, y'all are all crazy. I've always remembered it being that way since he got it. He had it for 6 months. He had it painted. It was bluish green. So who's correct? Who's right?
No one. We all lose in this situation.
So you got all these weird things that are happening, and you're going like, how many of these stories? I could go on and on. I mean, I got a story, a short one. It's not real long, but these people were on a lake. They were out in California, and they remembered an incident where they were kids. The sister remembers that they went out on paddle boats. You know, where you paddle it with your feet or whatever. And then the brother remembers it being a canoe. And he said, "We remember when I fell out of the boat, and it was and then they got into a big argument at Christmas. There was a big Christmas dinner argument between him and her. And he goes, how can you remember? You don't remember that?" And she goes, "No, I fell out of the boat. We were paddling with it was a canoe." And he goes, "We never were in a canoe. It was a paddle boat." So then they asked the mother and the dad, or the stepdad actually, and they said, "What kind of boat was?" And he's like, "It was a paddle boat." And she's like, "No, it wasn't. It was a canoe." So the two women remember it as the canoe, and the men remember it as a paddle boat. Now, is that significant? Does that have something to do with it? Is it the female's brain looking at differently from a masculine brain? Or is people remembering things differently? You can't say that, because in the truck thing, you had a female along with two males that remembered a certain way. Then you had two males that don't remember it the same way. So that kind of throws that out of whack. So you can't say it's a gender thing. You can't say it's there's no way to like here's another side note to it. Those four friends from Texas.
There's no pattern between.
There's no pattern. Yeah. The four friends from Texas, two were Hispanic, one was white, and one was black. The person, Benji, he was a white guy. And then it was another white guy and a Hispanic guy and a black guy. So there's no pattern there. I cannot find a pattern. I have tried to find a pattern. My friend that had his father die, he's black. One of my friends that remembers it, the funeral, both of them, or whatever, he was black. But then another one is white, and then the other people remember it, all one way. And it's multicultural, multi-ethnic. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no religion. There's people that are Christian, Buddhist, Islamic, Hindu, and they all have different versions of different things. They can't decide on it. And then, so when you're sitting there going like, how is this possible? How is it that we are all remembering things incorrectly? Who's actually correct? Who's incorrect? I mean, you go back and forth. Do we have any more before we get out of here?
Now or laters.
There you go. There's another one.
I remember now or laters.
How do you say it?
Now and laters.
Now and laters.
That's how they know it now.
Now. But I remember now or laters.
Me too.
Because
with no and?
With no and, yeah. It was just now or laters. Like you can eat them now, you can eat them later. They're good. Because that makes sense. You can eat them now or later.
Or later, yeah. But they're called now and laters.
I think I'm ready to be. Wow.
That doesn't even make sense.
What do you remember, Stephanie?
A lot of these weird Mandela things don't make sense.
The way it's supposed to be. I think I remember it
now or later.
Right. I think I remember it being like that.
No, when you said now and later, I was like, is that a food? Is that a place? Like it sounded like it didn't sound correct.
Doesn't sound correct. What about the Bing Crosby? Is it Bing Crosby? You want to look up the little drummer boy? He says baby Jesu. Like, what is that? And then there's the Michael Jackson one. Oh my gosh. This is one, the Jackson 6, not the Jackson 5. A lot of people say, oh yeah, there was another brother, Randy, who had always been there. I don't remember this kid. I don't remember this
Jackson
kid at all.
5.
The Jackson 5. Why would it not be the Jackson 6 if there was a younger brother to Michael named Randy? I mean, it's so weird. Even when there was a guy on YouTube that I looked and did some research on that, and he was looking into the Mandela effect. And even when you see the interviews, the guy's pretty funny. I think it's called Scarab. What's his handle on YouTube's called Scarab something. Just look up Mandela effect. And anyways, this guy goes by Scarab something, if he still exists. But he goes, look at Michael's reaction on his face when Randy Jackson starts talking, because there was an interview and this guy goes, well, there's 6 of you. Why isn't it the Jackson 6 instead of the Jackson 5? And the kid goes, there is 6 of us, huh? You can look over and there's this video of Michael making a face like who is this kid? Like Michael knew something was weird about that kid. Like, what you talking about, Willis? Who is this kid? You know, like this little pod person, pod kid named Randy. You know,
how like we hear about how tough and how strict his dad was. Why wouldn't he include his?
I know that doesn't make sense.
The young one, or I mean, Randy.
He would be a part of it.
He would. I guess it doesn't. It's not as catchy as the Jackson 6, but I don't think he would really care at that moment. I think what he was doing was rolling the dice and trying to see whichever of his kids could get famous. So why would he not?
I mean, you know, there's so many things about Michael Jackson too. I mean, I am not going to get into do a whole show on Michael. Guy lived a very sad life. I mean, supposedly he was chemically castrated by his dad. So supposedly, that's a story that I've read.
So his voice wouldn't change.
Because his dad was so horrible, you know. And I mean, he was basically just, you know, like beating gold records out of him, you know, basically. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah, but Randy,
but who's Randy? Like, you know, Randy Jackson, I know him was from American Idol.
Yeah.
That's the only Randy Jackson I know. That's not him. So I don't know who this Randy is, but they said, oh yeah, he's always been a part of that. There were people that were arguing with me back and forth on Facebook and YouTube. And I said, I don't remember this dude, man. I don't remember this guy. And then if you look at pictures of them, there's some weird stuff on there. If you look at the pictures of them when they were the promos or whatever, Randy would have already been old enough to have been a part of it, but he wasn't even there. Like, it's in the promos, and it's weird. It's like and then there's other people who say, well, there's pictures of him. He was already like just a little younger than Michael, but he wasn't in those promos. And other people say he was. And you're just going like, where is this leading us? Because if I can't even trust the Jackson 5,
what can I believe in?
Yeah, what can I believe? I mean,
is it the Beatles or the Grasshoppers?
Well, that gets into the whole. If you go to that gets into a whole nother episode right there, because you start talking about the Beatles. Paul McCartney. I mean, he supposedly is the walrus. You know, supposedly all the clues in there. And this is not Mandela effect, but this is weird. And we talk about a lot of weird stuff. I'll sidelight to that real quick just for a second. But Paul McCartney, Nelly, you believe that Paul McCartney is he died.
Yeah, I believe Paul McCartney died.
He's Billy Shears.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you start getting into the whole who really was, you know.
Don't get mad at me for that.
Well, there's so many weird things. Like when
because there's a lot of people out there that get upset about it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they get very hurt and very angry when you start saying things about their heroes, about people that they don't. They're like, no, that's not correct. That's not true. I had an argument that I monitored. I watched happen. I had to kind of break it up about John Wayne, how he died, and you know, there's all these rumors and stories or whatever, and when he died, and I mean, it just goes on and on and on. There's people that just really believe, okay, like people believe that certain people never died. Like Bruce Lee. They say, oh, he's still alive somewhere in the Cayman Islands. What's his name? Elvis. He's still alive. People are seeing Tupac. He's still making albums.
I wish Bruce Lee was still alive.
Even when Tupac died, people believe he was alive. So I don't know about that one.
Yeah, and I'm not going to get into a whole thing about that, but there are a lot of different stories about what went on with that, you know, and I think it's very cut and dry to me. I think that it was people trying to get something out of the East-West rap war or whatever. I think that's what it was. That's all. You know, but you know, when you go back and you look at all these different people and all these different, there are people that remember it differently. They're going to remember it a certain way. There are people that even remember, like the Kennedy assassination. That's a big one. And we're just touching on these real quick, you know, before we exit here. But do you see what I'm saying? Like there's so many things you can look at and point to that there's something obviously not correct. This is something that's not right. How many seats did the Kennedy assassination car have that he was assassinated in? Some people say that
most people remember it being 4, but now it shows 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 people, like
no 6 seats, right?
6 seats. No, 6 people.
6 people.
It was the driver and the passenger for the driver.
And then the mayor of Dallas and
his wife, and then
Kennedy
and his wife.
And then Jacqueline.
And they say the mayor got shot too, right?
Yeah, but he got hit.
Yeah, he got hit somehow, but it still went through Kennedy's head, even though he got hit too.
And obviously there was more than one shooter.
I mean, yeah, we're
and I got my opinions on who did that too. And I'm
the babushka lady.
And then the babushka lady was there. I think she was monitoring it from, for a reason. There was a reason why she was there. I don't think she was a shooter.
It wasn't a lady. It was a man dressed as a lady spying.
Well, I think it was a lady, but I think it was a Russian spy.
I was joking.
Oh, okay. But I think that it was done by certain elements that wanted him. I have my own reasons for what I believe for that. There are people who just the dates of things. They just think that. I just can't even tell you. There's so many folks. Just do yourself a favor. Go look into the Mandela effect and listen to this. I just gave you a pretty much a brush over of a lot of these things. But if you go back and you look at it and you tell me what you see and what you think, and send me your ideas, and maybe we can get them on the YouTube live show.
Oh, I'd love to hear other people's Mandela effects and their thoughts and stuff on that.
And we'll go around the horn. Is there anyone in particular that intrigues you the most? Stefan, we'll start with you. You're a guest.
I feel like there was one with a cereal brand. I can't think of one. I can't remember.
You're talking about the son, the one with the glasses. All of a sudden, like he didn't have sunglasses.
Oh, 2 scoops of raisins. Now he doesn't have the Raisin Brand son. The joke was that why does a son need sunglasses? And now he's never had sunglasses. What about the Monopoly guy? He had a monocle. Now he doesn't have a monocle.
Yeah, I don't get that one. That's why in Ace Ventura, the dude who was
you must be the Monopoly guy. Yeah,
he had the
I
monocle.
love that movie.
The monocle. People say, well, he never had a monocle. And there's so many people that be like, oh, it's just the fallibility of memory. No, I remember the son wearing sunglasses, and I always thought it was so funny.
It was a unique thing because it was like, who are you hiding from yourself?
The son is wearing the sunglasses. So, I mean, what is this? Like, what is going on here? Like, how is this possible? There's something not correct. Obviously, things aren't the way they're supposed to be. And we'll get into this real quick. We're gonna leave after this story. Now, this happened. If you're not a listener of the YouTube live, you should be. It's Tuesday, and it's shame on you for not. But here's what happened. Me, Nelly, and Stefan here. Stefan was here because of the live stream, and he's probably going like, "When am I going home? Jeez, people kidnap me and save me." No, we were talking about. Because we did this on the live stream, but for those of you who don't listen to the live stream, we're going to do a brief overview of this, and then we're going to get out of here. But we want you to hear this, and then if you're interested, you can go back and listen to the long version of it on YouTube Live that we did on January 25th.
And it was great. Yeah. And you guys missed it.
Yeah,
you should be ashamed.
But this is an incident that happened to Nelly and me and Stefan. Tony, you're out, so be quiet. So Nelly, go ahead and start.
We were driving, and we were going to take Stefan somewhere. Because he's an employee, and I suggested we show him the lights where the river is, because it's pretty out there and it was dark, so that's the best time to look at it. The lake. And as we're driving, we're having a conversation about manned animals and all that, and I look up and I see this dog on the side of the sidewalk, and I said, it didn't look like a dog. It wasn't registering as any type of breed I've ever seen before. So I said, what is that?
It was a baby deer.
I said, what is that? And Stefan says, it's a baby deer. And then Wolf was looking, and he said, it's not a deer or a dog. And as we got closer, you could see that it was neither of those two things. And it was small with the head was bigger than it should have been for its body. And it had a black mane go down into a tail that wasn't like a dog's tail. It was short and kind of like a hyena's tail. And it looked at us, and we were getting closer to it. And it looked kind of like it had expressions on its face, like it wasn't happy that we saw it. And so it turned and started to jot away. And I said, hey, let's follow it. And as we were following it, it looked at us, and it realized we were following it. So it took off, and we chased it down the residential area we were at, and it was clearing bushes like nothing. And it was not clumsy. It knew what it was doing. It did it with grace, actually.
100%.
And we we followed it all the way to this one house. And right before it reached the house, it turned back to look at us, and it had a look on its face like, "Ha, I beat you." And it had green, like bright green, glowing eyes. It was like the light was coming from inside it, not like the light was shining on its eyes. It was coming from inside that animal. And then it turned and it went into the driveway. And right before it went into the shadow from the lit up driveway, it started to evaporate, and then whoosh, it was gone.
Yeah. And Stefan, you want to talk about what you had said right before this encounter?
I literally was picking out for Nelly was saying with the animals. I literally said, like, what if God created like other animals outside of like lions, tigers, bears, like pigs, sheeps, like animals that we know. And like literally, like maybe like a couple minutes later, not even a couple minutes, like literally 2 minutes later, Nelly says, "Guys, do you see that?" I look up. From my point of view, I was sitting in the back seat, and you know, at first, I looked at it and I thought it was a baby deer. But I remember distinctly Wolf was like, "No, that's not a baby deer. That's not a deer." And and then Nelly, right after that, then it's like, "Let's follow it." Immediately after that. And I'm still trying to like analyze, like, what am I seeing? Like, I'm still trying to analyze it. I'm still thinking it's
not registering what it is.
It's not registering. No, I'm still thinking it's a baby deer. And then like we started following it, and then when it got to like this person's yard, like he has some bushes, or she or he or whoever, the family. Like literally it started like it was hopping those bushes like I was like, wow, it's kind of, I'm thinking like, wow, when we got to the street, like from where we were following it, it started. This is where I remember distinctly. Like when it's on the street, we're both on the street. Literally, it's like like, how we say, like literally, if we're in the car, if me and Wolf right now, like if we're in the car, like you and me right now, the car, I would say from where we're at, it was probably like right to your drink, Nelly, like right there. Honestly, like it wasn't that too far away.
For an audience, that doesn't really help.
I know.
What he's saying,
it's about
away.
4 or 5 feet.
About 4 or 5 feet.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was. Let's put it this way. What's really weird and what this has to do with the Mandela effect is that I said, "You mean like mandanimals?" And you were like, "Yeah, mandanimals." And then Nelly was like, "Yeah, there's all these weird animals now that we're seeing that never existed before." And I'm not joking. At the minute the sentences came out of her mouth, I'm not kidding, folks. We saw this weird thing in somebody's yard. Now, Stefan has a belief that it was revealed to us by God, and Nelly believes that it was just there doing its thing. We just happened upon it. I'm somewhere in the middle. I believe that maybe God opened our eyes to say, "Hey, these things are happening. It really does exist." But I think that thing was just there doing its thing, and I think that God allowed us to see it. Now that's
I agree with that.
So we can all kind of agree on that. I guess that's what I believe. But I mean, Stefan, you have yours, and Nelly has hers, and we're all kind of there. But the thing is, folks, it had green, glowing eyes, and it was standing up on its hind legs and then leaping over bushes. It wasn't a dog.
Cleared them with such grace.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. And the head was overly large. I think it was a juvenile of some kind. And it outran my truck at 30 to 35 miles per hour. And I was moving, and I was in my Tundra, and that thing takes curves pretty good, and I was moving. I mean, I don't think it takes curves as good as my truck now. That's my opinion, and that's nothing to do with this. But anyways, it was like moving. I was moving, okay? And this thing went to the one house that had this long, dark driveway, and for some reason, their gates were open. When all the other houses were gated, and they had gates around it, this thing had the gates open, and it went straight for that property like it knew where to go. And that it looked like an old haunted mansion. I mean, I'm not kidding. It looked like Luigi's mansion over there or something. And I'm looking at him going like, where is it going? I'm like, it's going for that house. And it went straight. And now this is the part that's really weird and hard to swallow. It went into the darkness of that driveway. You could still see. It wasn't like it disappeared in the darkness. We couldn't see. But it just was like, boom, it was gone. Like it didn't
as soon as it crossed over
just,
to like the person's house, it
was gone. Like it disappeared. It looked back. Gates. Gave us this weird smirk as it was running. It kept running, turned and
I outrun you.
Yep, and then it was gone, and we were like, "Dude, did that just happen? I mean, did that just really happen to us?" And it was so weird. I can't even describe to you.
But during the chase, it wasn't eerie. It was just like fascination, like, are we really seeing what we're seeing? But then when we got to the end and it evaporated, the fear of, oh no.
Yeah, and then Stefan immediately was like, that we just saw a jinn because Stefan's Muslim, but you know, us being Christians, we were like, well, it's a demon, you know, and Stefan's like, it's a jinn, because that's what Muslims and Christians do. We just think that everything is that. No, that's not the truth, but not for us anyway. But we were sitting there going like, what did we just see? What was that?
Yeah.
I mean, if you took, like I said, a hyena, a coyote, and a jackal and threw them all in a blender, you would get that thing. But it was so weird. The head was overly big. And the way that it would stand up on its hind legs and then jump over the bushes was so bizarre. It can't be overstated.
So
I mean, what it was so how weird it was, and it ran so fast that it was. What's Banjo? Banjo's over here growling. What's going on?
Oh, he's being grumpy.
He's being grumpy. You messing with him?
He's tired.
It was Banjo's cousin.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, and Tony, you weren't there, but like you heard this story earlier on the live stream when we did the live stream. Of course, go back to January 25th and listen to it. This would probably be a few weeks into the future from there, if the Mandela effect allows us that. and we're going to close it out with that. But folks, we had a good time talking about this and talking about the Mandela effect. And I hope that this should probably be a part 2 right here. So I hope that you guys tune in for this to finish the story and whatever. Go back to January 25th. It says Josh Turner cryptid encounter, because it was literally, for me, a cryptid encounter. Absolutely, positively, probably the only second encrypted encounter I've ever had. If you count the one when I was 15, which was completely different. The ones when I was 17, I don't think those really count, because those were they were vanishing dogs. I don't think that was in it. But this one, it looked so much like flesh and blood, and it made the bushes move. But then it did disappear. So I still think it's sort of a cryptid
for a moment
encounter.
It was part of this world.
It was. I mean, and I think it was a cryptid animal.
It's probably still out there, like still in that area looking.
You think so? You think it comes and goes?
100%. Definitely.
So yeah, and it's something that me and Stefan and Nelly have all talked about. I mean, we've talked about it many times. Always wondering about that, and it's just weird that we seen it. Or, you know, as we saw it.
I'm glad all three of us saw it together.
All three of us saw it.
Yeah,
so,
and it was so bizarre that we were talking about the Mandanimals, and then that.
I know, right?
You guys together.
You can't make this up.
Yeah, if to the day I die, I'll always remember this as one of the many weird encounters I've had. But like they say, you know, and Tolstoy says, those who say they don't know who they are. But I'm going to tell you right now, they as being like my colleagues, my friends, you know, people that know the paranormal, the people I've talked to, they'll say things like, if you're a seer and somebody who experiencer or somebody who sees these things, other people around you, when they're in your presence, they can sometimes experience them too.
That's why I make sure to stay as far away from you as possible.
Okay, thank you. Well, I appreciate that, because that's nice of you, because I don't want to have to look at you and smell you. But I'm sure Banjo is appreciative that you do that, because as much as he likes me, he likes to come and hang out with me. But you're always like, "Come on, Banjo," trying to pull him away from me. Look, he looks over. "What's up, buddy? What's up, buddy?"
He's wagging his tail.
You know what though? I think Banjo. We found him when he in abandoned underneath a bunch of pallets in a parking lot. Poor little thing. And
he's being eaten up by ants.
People.
He was living the life of the streets. And Tony took him in. I think he's been very appreciative of Tony. And I think he knows that I was the one that said, "Hey, we're going to let him come." And I think he knows that. That's why he likes me so much. Or he just knows that I'm the one that buys the food.
He's really sleepy right now. Look at him.
Yeah, he's trying to stay awake, but he's sleepy. So, guys, for everybody here at Paranormal Round Table, our guest, Stefan Gilson, he's works for us. He's a good guy. And, of course, Mushu.
The one and only.
For his birthday. We're recording this on his birthday, January 25th.
Happy birthday, Mushu.
And happy birthday. And Nelly, as always, my beautiful, sweet wife. Everybody here at Paranormal Round Table, good night.
Good night.
God bless.